Build professional skills this semester with Adobe Creative Cloud and create standout work both in and out of the classroom. Save big on professional creativity tools. Students get 65% off Adobe Creative Cloud, including Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, Acrobat Pro, and 20+ creative apps. No matter what project you're working on, Adobe Creative Cloud apps can help you take it to the next level. Visit adobe.com/student to learn more.
Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how are the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome. I'm Roger Stone, your host for The Roger Stone Show on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. For the next 2 hours, we're going to be talking news, politics, history, style, and of course, food. So don't miss a moment of our great programming here at 77 WABC. We are the crown jewel of Talk AM radio. So I urge you to go immediately to the App Store on your cell phone and download the 77 WABC app. That way you won't miss any of our great talk or entertainment programming here on the most dynamic and influential AM radio station in America today. All eyes, of course, are on the Trump hush money trial. President Donald Trump denied falling asleep in court, although it's easy to understand how the peripatetic and constantly in motion Donald Trump might be extraordinarily bored. But when members of the media accused him of dozing in the courtroom, he said in a social media post, "Contrary to the fake news media, I don't fall asleep during the crooked DA's witch hunt, especially not today. I simply close my beautiful blue eyes sometimes, listening intensely to take it all in." You gotta love that guy. On our show today, one of the president's lawyers, Alina Habba, will talk to us about the so-called hush money case. Looking forward to that. The more I watch the travesty of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's case against President Donald Trump, well, the more I realize to my horror that my own prosecution 3 years ago was the prototype, the template, the dry run for the politically motivated attempt to convict President Donald Trump to jail in order to interrupt his likely return to the White House. There's actually a video, it's only about 6 months old, in which President Joe Biden was asked directly, "Aren't you worried about a rematch with President Trump?" And he said, "No, not going to let him run. Going to use the Constitution, not going to let him run." I think it is right there. I mean, it tells you everything you need to know. This is a politically motivated tsunami of lawfare designed to stop Donald Trump's inexorable return to the White House. I mean, even if Donald Trump was guilty of the financial transactions he's accused of, which, by the way, he vehemently denies, this would be at worst a business records civil case. And that the Biden Department of Justice had to import their number 3 official, a gentleman named Coangelo, to prosecute the case on behalf of DA Bragg speaks volumes regarding the political motivation of this prosecution. Was there no one in Mr. Bragg's office capable of presenting this case. On the other hand, as the criminal defense attorney David Schoen pointed out the other day in an interview on my show, The Stone Zone, their problem here is there is no case. In other words, there is no underlying crime. If business records were altered, what purpose were they altered for? The U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York examined all these transactions, and they found no crime. The Federal Election Commission examined all these transactions, and they found no crime. So it is extraordinary, however, that in the trial, the judge has essentially prohibited Donald Trump and his lawyers from raising the facts of those two previous investigations which exonerated Trump. But it is absolutely unbelievable now when you look in retrospect at the gag. I was gagged in my trial. You'll recall that Special Counsel Robert Mueller, taking advantage of my 45-year friendship with Donald Trump, charged me not with Russian collusion, not with WikiLeaks collaboration, not with any other serious crime, but with the alleged crime of lying to Congress under oath, supposedly to conceal the Trump campaign's coordination with WikiLeaks over the release of documents, none of which the prosecutors ever proved. Almost a year after losing everything, our home, our car, our insurance, our savings, most of our insurance, our savings, my ability to make a living in 2 years of constant stress, on November 3rd, 2020, only because BuzzFeed, now out of business, but a left-wing media operation, sued the Department of Justice, demanding that Special Counsel Robert Mueller release his entire, complete, unredacted final report. I guess the guys at BuzzFeed thought there'd be something in there that was harmful to me that was being concealed, when in fact it was published on November 3rd, 2020, which is Election Day, which is the busiest media day of the year, and it was released at midnight of that day, and even there, Robert Mueller could not sugarcoat the fact that he had found no evidence of Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other crime for that matter. It's amazing, of course, that CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the Associated Press, not a single one of them reported the fact that I had been essentially exonerated. And so it is with Donald Trump. Just as I realized that it would be impossible in the District of Columbia to get a jury that was not all comprised of Trump-hating liberals and Democrats, I moved for a change of trial venue, which was, of course, denied. President Donald Trump faces a similar problem in Manhattan, where his motion to change venue was similarly denied. And then, of course, there is the question of the judge. Now, in this case, Judge Juan Merchant actually gave a $15 contribution to Joe Biden's presidential campaign. Now, the judicial canon of ethics specifically says that judges are not supposed to give political contributions. And to me, it doesn't matter that this contribution is just $15. It doesn't matter whether it's 15 or 1,500 or 15,000, although 15,000 I think would exceed the federal limit. it demonstrates the bias of the judge. We've also learned through the intrepid investigative reporting of Laura Loomer that the judge's adult daughter is a Democrat fundraising consultant, and that she's raised over $93.5 million for the Biden-Harris campaign, which is one of her clients. That's a very clear conflict of interest. The judge's daughter will make money on the case being presided over by her father. Yet Trump's lawyers have moved multiple times now to recuse the judge, and the judge refuses to step down. The gag order itself is a monstrosity. It is patently unconstitutional. Nowhere in our Constitution does it say that if one is accused of a similar crime, that they will forfeit their First Amendment rights. Simply does not work that way. But the problem you have is that by the time an appeal of the unconstitutional gag order works its way through the appeals court, the trial will be over. Just last week, the judge fined Donald Trump over $9,000, maybe actually more later in the week that I didn't see, for various violations of this gag order. Let me get this straight. Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels and others are allowed to attack Trump at will on MSNBC, CNN, TikTok, and so on. Michael Cohen actually making money on his TikTok solicitations. But Donald Trump's not allowed to defend himself. Un-American. And to go a step further, the judge made it clear last week that if Trump violated the gag order again, he would be subjected to incarceratory punishment. I had to look that word up. What it means is the judge will put him in jail if he dares to defend himself. Again, I point out the problem I had of getting an unbiased jury in the District of Columbia. Trump has the exact same problem. Impossible, really, for him to get a Manhattan jury that isn't virtually completely comprised of liberal Democrats who are hostile to them. I just find it comical that you have in jury selection these people who say, essentially, yeah, I hate Donald Trump's guts. I think he's a danger to democracy, but I can definitely be objective in this proceeding, in this trial. Outrageous. After the judge in my case praised the jury forewoman who was actually caught lying during jury selection in my trial, insisting during jury selection and the trial that she didn't know who I was, she knew very little about my case, when in fact she had been a Democratic candidate for Congress in Tennessee and been attacking both me and Donald Trump on Twitter and Facebook for an entire year prior to being selected as a juror in my case. So just to make this clear, she was attacking me on Twitter and Facebook by name regarding the very case that she said she knew nothing about and would later be chosen as a juror. Of course, my lawyers moved to dismiss the case and for a new trial based on the forewoman's bias, denied by the judge. Judge Amy Berman Jackson said there was no conflict, that this was not a evidence of bias. And so it is with Donald Trump. He only needs one, as many legal observers have pointed out. Just one juror can present or could produce a hung jury, and therefore no conviction. I have my doubts that that's going to happen, but hope springs eternal. Interestingly enough, one of the witnesses this week was Keith Davidson. Keith Davidson was a witness for Alvin Bragg in his case. Keith Davidson was the lawyer who represented Stormy Daniels. But what no one asked Mr. Davidson was whether it was true that Davidson had been arrested in a sting regarding the Hulk Hogan sex tape extortion scheme, and he avoided being charged in that matter in return for his testimony in New York, in return for diming Michael Cohen and exposing the entire Stormy Daniels matter. Now, I've had some personal experience with Mr. Cohen. Michael Cohen testified before the House and the Senate committee that he overheard a phone conversation on the speakerphone between candidate Trump and myself in 2016, in which I told candidate Trump something that he could have read online anywhere, which was that WikiLeaks and Julian Assange had announced that they had materials on the DNC and Hillary Clinton, and that they would release them in October. First, Mr. Cohen testified that this took place in July of 2016, but then, on the urging of prosecutors, he changed his mind and said it happened in August of 2016. The woman secretary, the woman assistant to Trump, who he claimed entered the room to say, "Mr. Trump, Roger Stone is on line one," has no memory of this happening. And by the way, there is no telephone record that bolsters Mr. Cohen's claim. That's because it's false. I can tell you exactly when this phone call took place. That would be never. Why would we even be discussing in August, which was already a public matter? This is why Michael Cohen was not called as a witness in my trial. Remember, I was charged with making misstatements to Congress, even though none of those misstatements hit any underlying crime, such as Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or anything else. It was a clever indictment, but it was essentially fabricated as a way to put pressure on me to testify falsely against Donald Trump, something I refused to do. The other thing that kind of perplexes me here is that there is an issue, there is a court motion which could end this long national nightmare, and that is the question of Special Counsel Jack Smith's actual appointment. You see, there is no current law which governs or justifies his appointment. Under Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, in order for him to hold this position as special counsel, he would have to be a U.S. attorney or otherwise confirmed by the U.S. Senate, and he has not been. The Supreme Court has asked Trump's lawyers twice about this in Washington, D.C., asking them why they have not raised this issue. And John Sauer, quite able but attorney for the president, has answered twice that they do not intend to bring that question before the Supreme Court. Now, the good news is that they have preserved the right to bring it in the Florida documents case, but that legal stratagem could end this entire thing, because if Jack Smith, the special counsel, were to be disqualified, well, then the indictments he brought would be voided. If you're just tuning in, folks, this is Roger Stone. We got a great show for you today. As I said, Trump lawyer Alina Habba joins us. I'll tell you about our other guests on the other side, so don't go away. We'll be right back.
Faraday presenta Ojos con Alergia y Picazón contra el jardinero. Y el ganador es Faraday Extra Fuerte. Para aliviar la picazón de los ojos por alergia, actúa más rápido y supera a Claritin y Flonase aún a las 24 horas. Faraday, adelante.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code listen50 for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50, code listen50. T's and C's apply.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone. We're talking, what else? Politics. We just finished a discussion of how Trump's lawyers could conceivably end this long national nightmare by examining the Appointments Clause of the U.S. Constitution, Section 2, Article 2, which clearly states that Special Counsel Jack Smith would have to be approved, confirmed in the Senate. He holds no position. He was a private citizen. Now, this same argument was brought against Robert Mueller, who was also not a U.S. attorney. It was denied at the trial court level in my case. One of the witnesses, Andrew Miller, raised it in his objection to testimony. It was overruled by the trial court judge. It was affirmed by the D.C. Appeals Court, but it never made it to the Supreme Court. And you now have 2 different Supreme Court justices asking Trump's lawyers directly why they have not raised the issue. It was Judge Clarence Thomas as recently as last week. The Democrats essentially have no strategy, and therein lies the problem. They certainly cannot run on Joe Biden's stellar records. Gas prices where I am are creeping up towards $4 a gallon. There is no more strategic petroleum reserve to dip in. We use most of that to try to jigger the 2020 elections. If you look at the price of living, groceries are up 21.2% in cost. Eating out at a restaurant up 21%. Baby food up 29.6%. Pet food up 22.7%. Rent generally across the board up 20%. Electricity rates up 28.4%. Natural gas up 30%. Apparel up 12%. Used cars up 20.3%. Airfare up an astounding 31.4%. An airline ticket costs almost a third more than it used to. Public transportation's up 20.8%, while at the same time, real average weekly wages are down 4.2%. No, Joe Biden cannot run on his domestic record. Also joining us today, by the way, is C.J. Pearson. He is the publisher of the Free Tribune. He is a millennial. He's going to talk to us about the turmoil in the campuses today. Really looking forward to that. And then the other, I think, stratagem for Joe Biden is to try to make this presidential election about January 6th and about these legal cases against the president. Speaking of January 6th, Owen Schroyer of the War Room joins us today to talk about why he never entered the Capitol, never engaged in violence, never damaged any property, never attacked anyone, actually did nothing other than stand on the grass outside the Capitol, yet he spent almost 4 months in jail. We're going to talk about that. The other thing I do here today is I ask for a little help. I miss more than anything else good deli, hard to find. There used to be two great delicatessens here in South Florida, Wolfie's in Miami Beach and the Rascal House, both long gone. When I go to New York, the Carnegie Deli is no more. The Stage Deli is no more. The Second Avenue Deli is pretty good, but it's on First Avenue. Go figure. Of course, there's Cats in the Bowery, but I'd like folks to tell me, where can I find the best pastrami sandwich? Where can I find some excellent corned beef? Where do I find the best matzo ball soup? Folks, you can reach me at roger.stone@wabcradio.com. I'd like your suggestions. I want to talk about more of this in the weeks ahead. Now, I have told everyone who's been listening to the Roger Stone Show that I am half Hungarian and half Italian, which means I'm Italian from the waist down. And it has been a great kick for me to reveal some of my family recipes here on the Roger Stone Show. Every week I try to pick a different dish that was one of my dad's favorites. Last weekend it was the Hungarian stuffed cabbage. You can still find that online on my Twitter profile. You can also find it at stowzone.com. It's the WABC audio that we have simply reproduced for you. But today, before the end of the show, I'm going to give you my family recipe, my mother's recipe, therefore my grandmother's recipe for linguine and white clam sauce. This is one of the simplest dishes out there, but it's one that's very easy to screw up. In a final housekeeping matter, some of you may know that my wife, Nidia Bertrand de Espinosa Stone, recently underwent surgery to alleviate some of the painful side effects of her entirely successful cancer treatment. And I'm happy to tell all of those who've texted, emailed, written, and called, she's doing absolutely great. It is a miracle for which we thank the Lord. So Mrs. Stone in excellent spirits. And she helps me out. She goes through my mother's recipe box and helps me pick out the recipe we're going to feature each and every weekend at the Roger Stone Show. Yes, I am working on a 77 WABC cookbook. This was Margot Katsimatidis' idea. It's a great idea. It's a lot more work than I thought it would be, but relatively soon we're going to have that cookbook for you. All right, buckle your seatbelts. This is the Roger Stone Show, and as the late, great Jackie Gleason would say, away we go.